Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Telescope Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Everyone in this place, if you could do a handstand, I want to see your feet up in the air.
Hello. Welcome to the Telescope Podcast, the show where we look at geek culture through the spyglass of faith. Hey, great to have you listening. My name is Matthew Seipel Anderson, and if you heard the previous episode, you know that podcasting content is down a little, but hopefully not forever. I've just got a couple classes left to finish up my Assemblies of God credentialing process, so that's really cool. I look forward to getting back in the saddle, doing more podcasting. But you know, now we've had a whole bunch of episodes of the recent series of The Mandalorian, and as you know, I'm a massive Star Wars fan, and I just couldn't resist. I couldn't just resist throwing together a couple thoughts and just kind of putting this episode out a little bit off the cuff, a little bit more loose than usual, but I think that's okay. I think we're going to be doing great. Not a whole lot in news yet. It's kind of interesting what's happening around the country because movie theaters are running out of money. I've read some articles that by maybe even the new year, some of these big theater companies that own lots of theaters around the country are going to be done. They're not going to be able to sustain all their buildings anymore. So I don't know. I don't know what the future of movie houses and movie theaters. I don't know what the future is, you know. It will be interesting. It'll be an interesting few years to see what happens between things opening back up, things closing down, maybe new companies, you know, acquiring these theaters and opening them again, or maybe things just beginning to premiere online. I don't know. I hope things don't go only to online because I really miss going to the theater. It's a great experience. It's a great social thing. You know, it's kind of like part of our culture. I mean, it's a big thing. Like, how is anyone even going to date? Because, you know, dinner and a movie, it's such a staple thing to do when you go on dates and stuff. So, I don't know. I'm optimistic as usual, but curious to see what the future holds. Well, let's just dive right into this discussion about The Mandalorian. All right, so I'm watching the most recent episode. I don't even remember the name of it. This episode is a bit off the cuff, as I said. But the most recent episode, the big reveals were, and spoiler alert, I'm not even going to try to control myself. I'm just going for it here. Spoilers for the most recent episode coming at you thick here. So the most recent episode is the episode that opens with Ahsoka, which I was so pumped for. I just practically jumped off the couch. In fact, the kids were being noisy, and I was like, you know what? We can't watch this right now. We have to shut this off because I want to focus on this episode. I'm very excited to see Ahsoka in live action, more than for just a second, because the previous episode, you know, had that a couple or one really fast shot of her. So yeah, so we just pushed pause and put the kids to bed and then watched it with full attention. And after the episode was over, I just took some time to think about, you know, what we've seen so far in The Mandalorian and, you know, to speculate about where could this show be taking us. Now, it seems like it's followed the pattern of the first season where, you know, the first episodes seem like these one-off adventures. And then at the end of the season, I'm thinking that it's going to thread them all back together somehow. But the thing is that this season has really expanded our cast of characters, and it's really, really interesting thinking about how they could possibly be threaded all together. I mean, this is beyond, you know, braiding your sister's hair. This is beyond, you know, making knots. This is like a tapestry. This is getting into complex weavery, if that's even a word. I don't think it is a word, but, you know, so you think about the cast of characters that we have, and as I did that, I realized that I think the character in the center of the web is Moff Gideon. He's a pretty cool big bad, and I heard it mentioned by other commentators that there's a lot of Darth Vader things, you know, little callbacks to Darth Vader that they've given him. So it kind of makes sense. He's the big bad of the series so far, unless there's someone above him. Of course, we know there is because we know from the newest trilogy that Darth Sidious is still alive. And we also know from this recent episode, this is such a cool moment, that Thrawn is coming into play here. And that's just so cool to think of Thrawn coming into live action, that Ahsoka is looking for Thrawn, and I suspect that means she's also looking for Ezra, right? The other lost Jedi that was lost along with Thrawn was shot into hyperspace by crazy hyperspace whales. It's a cartoon, so, whatever. And so Ahsoka is looking for them, and what we got from this recent episode is that she is continuing that quest. Well, presumably, that's kind of an assumption. We know she's looking for Thrawn, so does that mean that she's seen evidence of Thrawn being active or Thrawn being back in the region now that the Empire has fallen? Maybe Thrawn has come back in, maybe as part of the Chiss ascendancy. Maybe they're moving into the region. I don't know. I hope that she's looking for Ezra. I hope that if Ezra and Thrawn came into play into The Mandalorian, it would just blow my mind. It would kind of steal the thunder of the show because, come on, Ezra and Thrawn, they're just amazing characters. So anyway, I'm getting myself off topic. So Moff Gideon is at the center of this spider's web. You think about Mando and Baby Yoda, who we learned has a name, Grogu. So cool. Grogu. Sounds like some kind of like grape jelly for kids. Hey, kids, spread some Grogu on your toast. You'll love it. Anyway, Mando and Grogu, we know that they are being tracked by Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon is still after Baby Yoda because he wants the blood of Baby Yoda to use for his evil science experiments. We also know that Moff Gideon has an axe to grind with Greef Karga and Cara Dune. Whenever I see Greef Karga, Greef Karga. Whenever we see Greef Karga, I always think Apollo Creed, so I should just start calling him Apollo. So we also know that Moff Gideon has an axe to grind with Apollo and Cara Dune because of what they did in Season 1 with driving him off that planet, and then Greef Karga obviously took over leadership, and he and Mando and Cara took down that base where they, learned information about the science experiments and the sort of the cloning, or not really cloning, but the creating these genetically modified test tube people that are impressed or imprinted with memories and all this stuff, right? That's the kind of thing that they did to create Snoke, which I think is super cheesy, but whatever. It's cool. It's cool. Star Wars. We just kind of roll with it in Star Wars, right? We're just having fun. This is a galaxy far, far away. It's not our galaxy. It's a crazy galaxy, right? Where we can just imagine all kinds of weird things happen, and it's all good. We just enjoy it. We roll with the punches. So we know that Moff Gideon has an axe to grind with those guys, right? Mando's pals. We know that. Well, no, I shouldn't say we know. You could speculate with a reasonable amount of certainty that Moff Gideon may know actually about Darth Sidious. Now, he may not. That's pretty top secret stuff. We don't know how much Moff Gideon knows about who is ordering all the science stuff, all the creation of these test tube beings. Maybe there's another individual above him who would be ordering him to do things that would be, connected to Sidious. Who knows? Who knows how this is all happening or why? But you could speculate. Moff Gideon may actually be a total insider to the fact that Sidious is still alive, hiding in the unknown regions. And we obviously know that he has a connection to cloning or creating these crazy test tube people, which brings us to Boba Fett, right? Boba Fett is the clone of Jango Fett, way back from the Clone Wars. And now Boba Fett, they teased him right away early in this season, and they haven't brought him back yet. And he's kind of a dark horse. I don't know what they're going to do with him. He is a notorious villain character. So you think, he's going to definitely be an antagonist against Mando. However, if Boba Fett is a Mandalorian, it would be a pretty cool twist if Boba Fett showed up somehow and actually was an ally to Mando. That would be a cool twist, I think. I think that would be awesome. Now, as I said, Moff Gideon may know about Darth Sidious, but it's also possible that Thrawn knows about Darth Sidious, and maybe Thrawn is the step above Moff Gideon that's connected to Sidious. Now, I didn't read all the Thrawn novels, so I'm not completely in the know with that character. I know that Thrawn's kind of a double agent. He's connected to the Chiss people, but he's also part of the Empire, got very high up, was known by Sidious, was known by Vader. So it's possible that, maybe he's the link between Sidious and the remnants of the Empire that are being reformed into the First Order. So who knows what's going to happen with that? That's just way out there. That's probably seasons away from being disclosed to us, but it's fun to think about. And now you got this other character. Like I mentioned, Boba Fett is a Mandalorian. You have other Mandalorian characters. You've got the Armorer that we saw a whole bunch in Season 1. She's just a kickin' fighter. Just super awesome. But also we learned from our introduction to the character Bo-Katan that Mando was actually raised by this super extreme faction of the Mandalorians. Like, as if normal Mandalorians weren't insane enough, there's like an actual like cultic, super crazy strain of Mandalorianism, and Mando was brought up in that. So that's why he never takes off his helmet. They're just like so hardcore. And Bo-Katan is a Mandalorian character that we met who's not part of that faction, but she believes that she's got the right stuff to take over Mandalore again and push out the remnants of the Empire. So, we meet Bo-Katan. She's kind of like doing this guerrilla campaign against the Empire, stealing weapons, planning all her, making all her plans to take over Mandalore again. And so Bo-Katan, the Armor, Boba Fett, and Mando. You've got all these Mandalorians, not to mention the other Mandalorians that we've seen that, for example, help Mando escape from that first planet he was on in Season 1. So, it's like, how are these Mandalorians going to play together? Are they going to play nice? Are they going to be at odds with each other? There's some really interesting conflicts, between them. But at the same time, they do have a united cause. So, yeah, I'm really curious how that's all going to play out. Obviously, this whole thing is going to a big confrontation with Moff Gideon and all these characters. It's all going to come together somehow, and they even teased recently in one of the episodes at the very end that Moff Gideon has this huge ship full of these like robotical black death troopers. So, they're definitely showing us, they're like whetting our appetite for this massive battle that's going to happen. A Star War, as you could say. And it's going to be sweet. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. I've been trying to speculate how it's all going to go down, but I don't know. I just don't know how it's going to go down. It's going to be mysterious. I know that Ahsoka is going to get roped back in somehow. She does have a connection to Bo-Katan. And so if Moff Gideon... And Ahsoka also has an attachment now to Grogu, a.k.a. Baby Yoda. She's got this kind of like love for him, right? This affinity for him. You saw she gave him this look. She kind of had this look that told the audience, I'm having a feeling. I'm having a force feeling right now, but I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm just going to keep it to myself, and you're going to have to wait a few more weeks. It's one of those looks like, yeah, something's happening inside my head, but I'm not going to, disclose it. So, Ahsoka has this connection to Mando and Grogu, but obviously she also has a connection to Bo-Katan, because Bo-Katan is the one who told Mando where to find her. So, when it comes to this conflict with Moff Gideon, obviously Bo-Katan wants in because she wants the Darksaber. And Ahsoka could easily be drawn in because of Mando and Bo-Katan, probably both. Then I have a strong suspicion that the good old sheriff from Episode 1, along with Greef Karga, a.k.a. Apollo, and Cara Dune, just if no other reason because they're awesome and the audience loves them, they're all going to get pulled in as well, right? So it's going to be epic. It's going to be fun. If I had to predict how this show is all going to end, I would say something like, I wonder if Grogu is going to be dropped off somewhere in the unknown regions. And I just have this feeling like Ahsoka, Grogu, Thrawn, maybe Ezra, maybe even Mando himself are all going to end up way out there in crazy space, way out in the middle of nowhere, maybe even like in the Chiss controlled region of space. And the reason I think this is because I think they're going to want to give us a really plausible reason why these characters weren't around during the events of the recent trilogy. And then they're going to get us all hyped because then after the events of the recent trilogy, there's going to be a possibility that these characters could come back. Or maybe they'll just kind of have their own storylines happening during the events of the recent trilogy, but more behind the scenes that will help kind of flesh out what was going on. I don't know. It's tough to say, That's the thing about these imaginary stories. They're imaginary. They could go anywhere. But I think it's going to be sweet. I think it'd be awesome if Boba Fett surprised us and became an ally to Mando. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Boba Fett was the one who actually captured Grogu as a way to sort of redeem himself and get back in with the Empire. So maybe Boba Fett would be presenting Grogu to Moff Gideon, which would create a huge crisis, which would bring in, Mando would like motivate him to round up, Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, Grief Karga, and Cara Dune, all to go on this, big rescue mission. That would be a pretty sweet plot, a pretty great season finale as well. I could see maybe like an invasion by the Death Troopers, a surprise attack by the Death Troopers, combined with Boba Fett coming into the fray, grabbing Grogu while Mando is, shooting it up with all these robots. Bo-Katan and Ahsoka saving Mando's life at the last minute. But alas, Grogu's been taken into space, and he hates space because it's cold. And then they have to go on a big rescue mission, which would either be something, as a finale to this season, or it would make a pretty sweet. You could have a whole plot line based on that in season 3. That would be pretty cool too. Well, anyway, let's think about how does this tie into Faith? How can this wacky storyline tie into Faith? It is time to
bring forth the
we are the show that looks at geek culture through the spyglass of Faith. I lost my train of thought there for like a split second. It's all good. This is an off-the-cuff episode. We're having fun here. So I was laying in bed last night thinking about how in the world am I going to use this for the telescope? Because, it's fun to talk Star Wars, but how can you make this interesting when it comes to faith, when it comes to, Jesus? And here's my thought. I kind of have a beef with something that happened in this episode. Ahsoka said, I can't train little Grogu. He's sweet with the Force, but I just can't do it, and I can't do it because he's too attached to you, Mando. He loves you too much. You're like a father to him, and that love and attachment is going to lead him to the dark side. He's not going to be able to be, disattached enough to make the tough call, and he's got all this power to protect the ones he loves, and it will just lead him to do wrong and self-motivated things. And I get it. But here's the thing. I just disagree with it. I don't think that love is necessarily a path to the dark side or to selfishness. And I'm not just talking in Star Wars here. I'm talking about in real life. I don't think that being a completely disattached person is really something that's going to make you better or better able to make the right decision. In fact, I think quite the opposite. There's a scripture that says, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. And it's referring to Jesus. That's the Matt Seipel Anderson translation right there. Not a perfect translation, but, it's referring to Jesus and how his great love is what prompted him to lay down his life for others, right? And I think in our own lives, the more we are committed and the more that we are attached to people, the greater depths of self-sacrifice we're willing to go to. Maybe on the surface, love that we feel is selfish. We like these relationships and want to maintain them for our own good, right? For our own benefit, because we feel that they reciprocate. They give us back this feeling of love and value and whatnot. But the thing is, I think as you move deeper in your love for others and your love for those close to you, you move into a more self-sacrificing mode, right? Like, it just seems like everyone who truly, truly loves a cause becomes willing to self-sacrifice. Like, even people who are into environmental stuff, right? Like, the people who just will not use a plastic shopping bag. They will not. They will carry each can of peas to their car in their pockets before they'll use a plastic bag. They will, stock up on the grocery bags, like the cloth grocery bags, and they will bring those things in. They are proud of it, right? Like, they use all organic soap, unscented deodorant. They are like environmental to the core. And I applaud them because I think the environment is a super important issue. But, it goes to a depth of self-sacrifice where you're willing to lay down, your own comforts, your own conveniences for something you believe in, right? You see this in parents, right? Like the classic American story is the immigrant family who came here with nothing. And they lived in, squalor in this junky neighborhood, in this tiny apartment with like 25 people. But they worked hard and they bought a car. And then, they all drove around in it. And then they got another one. Then they got a nicer apartment, and a couple generations later, they own businesses. And they've got people who've gone through colleges and have advanced degrees. And, it just that self-sacrifice of one generation gave a leg up to the next generation, which gave a leg up to the next generation. And that work ethic just continued. Well, that wasn't born out of detachment, right? And a lot of the Star Wars philosophy actually comes out of Buddhism. And this idea of detachment, of, forsaking all your desire. Desire is the thing that's evil, right? And there is an element of truth to that. In fact, even in the book of James in your Bible, talks about, why are there problems, interpersonal problems, right, between people in the church? And he asks this rhetorical question. He says, is it not your desires? Is it not the desires that war within you? That's the root of your problem. So yeah, there is an element to keeping our desires in check and being willing to let go, being willing to be content with where we are. However, when it comes to love and personal attachment, like in the Jedi Creed, I completely disagree. I think those feelings of love, of those bonds of friendship, those are the things that drive us to incredible self-sacrifice. You even think of patriotism, right? We value patriotism. Well, I think the root of that is love. And you think about people who serve in the military and who have fought, and you hear that cry of, fight for your friends, fight for your families, fight for your children. It goes back to those core attachments that we have that go so deep, and our love runs so deep and so strong that we're willing to lay down ourselves in our own lives. So that is one aspect of the Jedi Code that I have a complete beef with. I think it's baloney. I think it wouldn't work. I think that, stealing kids, or not stealing, in this case it's voluntary, but taking kids away from their parents at a young age would be completely detrimental. It would totally mess them up and would not make them better keepers of the peace. There you go. There are my thoughts. My final closing thought is today, call your mom, call your brother, call that person that you love, and get closer to them. This holiday season, don't put off. If you've got something against someone, if you've been mad at your friend for like 3 months, you need to forgive them. You might not be best friends anymore, but you can still forgive. These bonds of love are what make us better people. They're what make us want to serve each other and help each other and just be better, right? For one another. It's a good thing. It's a positive thing. And it's a godly thing. It's born out of God. And, there's one person, the Bible says, who sticks closer than a brother, and that is Jesus Christ. I want to encourage you today, think about your walk with God. God wants to be close to us through all the seasons, through all the hard times, through all the good times. But are we close to Him? Are we willing to put in the time, the effort to be close to God? That's a challenging thought, and it's one I want to leave you with, because ultimately that love and that value that you experience from God that He has for you will shine through in the rest of your life. And it's going to be a thing that will lift up your head. It's going to be a thing that's going to make you a better person and make you shine in this world and in this life. So, hey, thanks for listening. It was been a lot of fun recording this episode, and wish me luck over the next month as I just have a few things to finish up for those credentials, and really looking forward to and believing that I'll be able to do more podcasting. And yeah. All right. Peace out. Love ya. Bye.
What's up, everybody?